All right. Hey, Mission students. My name is Josh. I'm a student pastor here at Mission. This is part two of an interview that I did with Jaden Duenas. And if you missed part one, you can check that out. We posted it on here yesterday. This is part two. And really, we just want to encourage you and lead you as students right now to be active listeners and learners. And so Jaden is going to share a little bit of his own story, but also some things that we can learn to grow in the season, some resources that we can lean into. So here's part two. Well, I would love just to kind of hear a little bit because I know this again, like this is not something that I feel like that right now we're in this season of the world where everyone is aware. Like I just don't know if yeah, you just have to be pretty kind of like head in the sand to not be aware of what is happening in our country the last week. And I know um, I have had probably more conversations in the last 8 or 10 days um, with a whole spectrum of people, and that there's one group who have been aware of this issue and have been leaning in and trying to bring change around this issue. And then there's this like group in the middle who I would say honestly like they're just ignorant. That they're like not in like a mean spirited kind of way. They're just like I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I don't know how to respond. And this is typically friends of mine, and I feel this as well. Who are white and going like, okay, so like I want to speak out against racism. I think that these things are wrong. I just don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. And then obviously, like over on the other spectrum are the people who completely disagree, and I don't even feel like we needed necessarily dialogue about that. That would be like the people who are maybe more overtly racist or just like they just say offensive things either out of ignorance or intention, but they're not engaging in a dialogue. It's definitely a monologue of them making noise. And so um like we'll leave them over there, but I'd love for you to just kind of talk to specifically in that middle group and just share like what are some things that we can be doing, or what are the things that you're seeing other people do that you're like, this is really helpful, and we need more of this, or we need less of that. Just maybe some tips or insights that maybe you have around that.
Mhm. Well, I think a key part in that other group that like we're trying to leave out a little bit
Yeah.
um, is that like the one key thing that's not happening in that group really is listening to people with these experiences.
Wow.
And so I think for that middle group, like whether you have been or you want to start, like keep listening or start listening to people who can speak to this without like throwing facts. I can't say facts, but like without trying to meet it with an argument.
Hmm.
There are facts that demonstrate like the reality that we live in, of course, but don't try to meet it with an argument and a debate. Really listen to lived experiences
Wow.
and then be vocal about it.
Hmm.
Because when you hear those experiences, those like the what do I do, those questions get answered. When you start to realize that a lot of people in your own community have had these sorts of encounters, whether it's with law enforcement or people who see them as a threat or other experiences like that, you start to realize, like, okay, then maybe I need to do more on my part to protect these people. I need to do more on my part in terms of voting to vote for people who aren't going to put authority figures in place who are going to treat like my brothers and sisters like this. Um, I'd say another thing that is like the easiest thing you can do. There's like probably 75 petitions going around right now,
Hmm.
probably more than that, and they each take about 10 seconds to fill out. And
Wow.
they might seem kind of like pointless because it's just like putting your name on something, but um, that shows that there are people behind that issue and people who want to be vocal about it. And
Yeah.
when people behind that, that's how it gets heard. So if people come to those petitions and they say like, what's it gonna do if I just put my name on this? well, it's gonna do something. You're adding another name to the amount of people who are gonna make this heard by authority figures, who are then gonna make the change that needs to happen. So
Wow.
I'd say between listening and then being vocal and speaking out about injustice, and then further just doing, if you can't do the hard work of organizing and activism and everything, there are organizations for that. They can do their job. They've been doing a great job. If you can't do that, do the easy stuff, the stuff that's super simple that you can do from your phone, you know?
Mm. Yeah, and I know that even I like even as you just mentioned that about the petitions, I know that I've been guilty of that because I'm like, oh, what is what is my name even doing? So that's just even convicting to me of thinking, oh yeah, I've seen those popping up on my timeline and as I'm scrolling through and in my feed, and I've said that same thing. Like I don't know what impact this has. So that's um that's super helpful. As you think about specifically like our middle school and high school students, is there one thing or maybe a couple things that you think specifically that they can do um, to maybe raise awareness? Maybe it's some videos that you would recommend, or maybe it's a book or something like that. That if we're going to be intentional about learning around this issue, I think that there's the listening to the people who are in our lives, but then there's also the um, and this is what I'm learning is like the hard work of actually going and digging in, and because there's a ton of information and books out there, and sometimes it can feel like I don't even know where to start. So do you have any kind of recommendations that you would share?
Yeah, yeah. I could say one that I've been sharing a lot lately, and it's a great movie. And I know that specifically for middle high schoolers, I know that I didn't always love to read so much.
Mhm.
This is a great movie. You can sit down and watch it, and I think it's like an hour and a half. It's called 13th by Ava DuVernay, and it's on Netflix right now. If you want to understand the reality of the fact that George Floyd's death is not a single isolated incident, but
Mm,
the fact that it's part of a very large and intricate system, that movie is a perfect visualization of that system.
wow.
Everything from slavery to Trayvon Martin and now George Floyd, and it was made in 2016, so it doesn't include George Floyd. Um, but you'll get a real grasp of the system that we live in right now. The amount of money that is made from putting black and brown people, and honestly, not even just black and brown people, but just poor people, like working class people in
Mm,
jails. The amount of money and the amount of people who profit off of that is mind-boggling.
wow.
And I say the other thing is that it's easy right now to say, what would Martin Luther King want? He's a peaceful, he's about nonviolence. He says only love can drive out hate. And that's all very true. But this is what you can do on YouTube right now. Really listen in on some of those speeches. Because he talks
Mhm.
about a lot more than just turn the other cheek, you know? And that is important. Of course, we should be peaceful, we should be vocal and try to cause change the most peaceful ways possible. However, there's a lot more to his ideology as a black activist,
Yeah.
as a black pastor as well. He talks about the Bible a lot,
Right.
and you really listen into those speeches, and a lot of the people around him who would speak out as well. You'll really start to see that they're not just addressing um, people being racist on the buses and in the streets. They're addressing a greater system that we live in that allows for that to happen,
Yeah.
that allows for people to be killed by the police, that allows for um, was it minimum sentencing and
Yeah.
plea bargains, and all of that is part of a single system that we live in right now that needs to be reformed for us to really see any kind of peace.
Wow. That's really good. And one of the things I've have found, even as I've been going back to Dr. King's speeches and rereading a book called Where Do We Go From Here? And it feels like everything that he's saying, while the language and the words are a little bit different, it's like he's talking to 2020. It's amazingly profound the voice and the vision that he had, as well as the unfortunate reality that we are 50 years removed and we're still, as a country walking through some of these same challenges that he was dealing with in the 1960s. So yeah, that's really good. Well, thank you, Jaden. Appreciate you jumping on here, man. Appreciate everything that you're doing. You want to give a shout out real fast just to your if students wanted to follow you on Instagram, how they could do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so my Instagram is JADENDUENAS_. That's
Awesome.
pretty consistent across the board. So, yeah, you can find me there. Right now, I'm in the middle of trying to put together this directory of small businesses um, around Chicago that have been, and Chicagoland as well, that have been impacted by looting and stuff going on that's kind of detracting from the real issues at hand and the real movement that's trying to occur. And we can't let that like draw away from where the attention needs to be. So I'm putting together that right now. If you know someone who needs help,
Yeah.
tell them to add themselves to that list, and I'll make sure that we kind of organize and get them the funding that they need as well. So
Awesome, man. Appreciate everything you're doing. Appreciate always getting the opportunity to learn from you, and thank you for taking some time here to share. And look forward to us being able to continue this dialogue as well as link arms together and see the world change and see the kingdom of God come here and now in the 10 and in Chicago and in the United States as it is in heaven. So,
mm, so
yeah.